Imagine creating a fashion empire worth millions, then vanishing without a trace. Picture walking into luxury stores worldwide where your name is plastered on perfume bottles and price tags, but nobody knows your face. Think about becoming so legendary that designers from Marc Jacobs to Demna Gvasalia cite you as their biggest influence. Yet you refuse to even step out and take a bow after your own runway shows. For over 20 years, Martin Margiela pulled off the most remarkable disappearing act in fashion history. No interviews, no photographs, no social media. In an industry obsessed with celebrity and ego, he became fashion's invisible man. Then, in 2009, he didn't just step back, he completely vanished. The fashion world buzzed with rumors. Was he dead? In hiding? Had he suffered some kind of breakdown? The mystery only made the legend grow bigger. This is the story of Martin Margiela, the designer who showed us that sometimes the loudest fashion statement is silence. Born on April 9, 1957, in Genk, Belgium, Martin Margiela grew up in a fairly ordinary middle-class home. No fancy fashion connections, no glamorous backstory. Just a quiet kid who became fascinated with clothes after watching a TV show featuring designers André Courrèges and Paco Rabanne. While other kids were playing outside, young Martin was already cutting up fabrics and reimagining garments, laying the foundation for what would become his revolutionary approach to fashion. As a teenager, Margiela started piecing together second-hand clothes from flea markets, creating his own unique style on the cheap. This DIY approach would later become his signature, taking something forgotten and transforming it into something revolutionary. "I was obsessed with pop art, and Andy Warhol was my god," Margiela once said in a rare quote about his early interests. Those influences would later shape his artistic sensibilities, blurring the lines between fashion, art, and social commentary. In 1977, he enrolled at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, the same school that produced the famous Antwerp Six group of designers. Though he's often mistakenly grouped with them, Margiela actually graduated in 1979, a year before they did. The school's rigorous training taught him the traditional skills he would later deliberately subvert. After graduation, Margiela worked as a freelance designer for 5 years, honing his craft in relative obscurity. The big break came in 1984 when he moved to Paris and landed a job as design assistant to Jean-Paul Gaultier, the enfant terrible of French fashion. For 3 years, Margiela absorbed everything while working under the flamboyant Gaultier. But where Gaultier loved the spotlight, Margiela was already plotting a different path, one where the designer would remain firmly behind the curtain. In 1988, Margiela took the leap and founded his own label, Maison Martin Margiela, with business partner Jenny Meerens. Meerens, who owned a boutique in Brussels, saw something special in the shy Belgian designer, once describing him as the most talented young designer she had ever seen. From day one, their approach was radical. Instead of a lavish launch with champagne and celebrities, they set up shop in a Spartan white space in Paris with no signage outside. The interior was completely painted white. Walls, floors, furniture, even the telephones. Staff wore white lab coats regardless of their position in the company, from receptionist to pattern cutter. This clinical, anonymous environment was the physical manifestation of Margiela's philosophy, that the clothes, not the creator, should be the focus. And those clothes? They shocked the fashion establishment to its core. While other designers of the late 80s were doing power suits with shoulder pads and glitzy excess, Margiela sent models down the runway in garments that looked deliberately unfinished. Exposed seams, visible linings, frayed edges, pieces that seemed ripped apart and hastily reconstructed. These weren't mistakes. This was deconstruction, a philosophy that questioned the very foundations of fashion itself. His first official runway show in fall 1989 wasn't held in some fancy Paris venue. Nope. He chose a derelict playground in a North African neighborhood on the outskirts of Paris. The runway was uneven. The models stumbled intentionally. Fashion editors sat on rickety chairs rather than gilded front-row seats. This show introduced one of Margiela's most iconic creations, the Tabi boot. Inspired by traditional Japanese split-toe tabi socks, these strange, hoof-like boots with a split toe became the brand's signature footwear. They looked bizarre, uncomfortable, almost alien, and fashion insiders couldn't get enough of them. The boots made their debut in an unforgettable way. Models with feet dipped in red paint left split-toed footprints along a white canvas runway, creating art as they walked. It was theatrical, conceptual, and utterly unlike anything else in fashion at the time. But while his designs were getting attention, Margiela himself was conspicuously absent. Unlike most designers who bask in applause after their shows, Margiela never appeared for a bow. Interviews were conducted via fax machine, later email, and always signed collectively as "we" rather than "I." His refusal to be photographed became legendary. There are only a handful of blurry images of him in existence, most from his student days. This wasn't just a quirky marketing gimmick, it was a radical rejection of the cult of personality that was taking over fashion in the 90s, as designers like Versace, Gaultier, and Lagerfeld became celebrities in their own right. The idea was to emphasize that the designs should speak for themselves, explained one associate, and that they are the product of a collaborative team rather than just one person. Even the brand's label rejected conventional branding. Instead of a flashy logo, Margiela's pieces featured a blank white rectangle attached with 4 white stitches, visible from the outside on unlined garments. The stitches were designed to be easily removed, making the garment completely anonymous. It was anti-branding before that was even a concept. While other luxury brands were plastering their logos on everything, Margiela numbered his different lines from 0 to 23, with no particular chronological order. Line 0 was for his couture-like artisanal collection, Line 1 for women's, Line 10 for men's, and so on. It was a system only fashion insiders understood, creating an exclusive language that further mythologized the brand. As the 90s progressed, Margiela's influence grew. His spring-summer 1990 collection presented in a playground, shocked with intentionally uneven hemlines and models who stumbled down the runway. This wasn't a mistake. It was Margiela deliberately subverting the polished facade of fashion shows. Year after year, he continued to provoke and inspire. For his spring 1996 collection, he unleashed an army of models dressed entirely in white, with faces covered in white stockings. Anonymous, like him. For fall 1997, he sent out jackets made from vintage evening gloves, each one requiring over 30 pairs. His spring 1999 collection featured garments with mold and bacteria growing on them, exploring the concept of decay in fashion. The fashion establishment didn't know whether to be horrified or fascinated. Critics called him a genius and a madman in the same breath. Stores couldn't keep his pieces in stock, despite their often challenging aesthetic. In 1997, the fashion world was stunned when Margiela was appointed creative director of women's ready-to-wear at Hermès, one of France's most conservative and prestigious luxury houses. It seemed like an impossible pairing, the avant-garde deconstructionist taking over a brand known for timeless elegance and tradition. Yet somehow, it worked. At Hermès, Margiela showed a different side of his design sensibility, creating understated luxury with impeccable craftsmanship. His collections featured loose-fitting masculine tailoring, black crepe evening dresses, and a focus on quality over trend. He pioneered a timeless wardrobe focused on quality and inspired by 1920s sports and leisure clothing, noted one fashion historian. Among his innovations at Hermès were jackets that could be rolled up and carried like bags, coats with removable collars, and the iconic twice-looping strap of the Cape Cod watch. While maintaining his anonymity at Hermès, Margiela continued to push boundaries at his own label. The contrast between his work for the two brands showcased his versatility and depth as a designer. Then, in 2002, something changed. Maison Martin Margiela was acquired by Italian fashion group OTB, led by Renzo Rosso, the founder of Diesel. With new financial backing, the brand expanded rapidly, opening boutiques worldwide. Success brought commercial pressure, and rumors began to circulate that Margiela was growing disillusioned with the direction his company was taking. By 2008, according to Rosso, Margiela had not been involved in recent collections, despite still holding the title of creative director. Behind the scenes, Margiela had begun searching for a successor. He even approached Raf Simons, then at Jill Sander, offering him the creative reins, but Simons declined. The brand held its 20th anniversary show in September 2008 in Paris, featuring models walking alongside a giant birthday cake surrounded by lab-coated assistants. The collection included coats made of synthetic wigs, hybrid garments that fused trench coats with tuxedo jackets, and mirrored tights that resembled disco balls. It was a celebration of everything Margiela had built, and though no one knew it at the time, his swan song. In October 2009, the fashion world was rocked by a terse announcement. Martin Margiela had officially left his eponymous label. No farewell tour, no emotional goodbye letter, no explanation. He simply disappeared. The news confirmed what insiders had suspected for months, but the mystery surrounding his departure only deepened the Margiela myth. Why would someone walk away at the height of their influence? What happens when a brand built on a singular vision loses its visionary? His close associates speculated that he wanted to enjoy his life outside the insistent glare of the fashion world, reported one insider, but Margiela himself remained silent on the matter. The brand continued without him, operated by an anonymous design team, an approach that felt appropriate given Margiela's own embrace of collective creativity. In 2014, John Galliano was appointed creative director, bringing his theatrical flair to the house. Around the same time, the brand dropped Martin from its name, becoming simply Maison Margiela, a symbolic severing of ties with its founder. For nearly a decade after his departure, Margiela maintained his vow of silence and invisibility. The fashion world moved on, though his influence remained inescapable. Designers from Phoebe Philo to Virgil Abloh cited him as inspiration. The Margiela effect could be seen everywhere, from deconstructed denim to intentionally distressed fabrics, to the very concept of fashion as intellectual expression rather than mere adornment. Then, in 2018, something unexpected happened. Martin Margiela broke his silence. When awarded the Belgian Fashion Awards Jury Prize, Margiela sent a written statement that was read at the ceremony. "I am very touched and indeed honored to receive this award here in my native country, especially because I stepped down from fashion already 10 years ago," he wrote. He went on to explain his reasons for leaving. "I felt that I could not cope anymore with the worldwide increasing pressure and the overgrowing demands of trade. I also regretted the overdose of information carried by social media, destroying the thrill of wait and canceling every effect of surprise, which was so fundamental for me." It was a rare glimpse into the mind of fashion's most elusive figure, confirming what many had suspected, that the acceleration of the fashion system and the rise of social media had made Margiela's thoughtful, mysterious approach increasingly difficult to maintain. The following year, documentary filmmaker Rainer Holzheimer achieved what journalists had failed to do for decades. He convinced Martin Margiela to tell his story. The resulting film, Martin Margiela, in his own words, premiered in 2019, featuring Margiela narrating his career while still maintaining his visual anonymity. Only his hands appear on screen, handling fabric and archival pieces. The documentary offered unprecedented insight into Margiela's creative process and philosophy. Jean-Paul Gaultier, fashion editor Karine Reutfeld, and others spoke about his impact, while Margiela himself discussed his commitment to anonymity and its effect on his work. "The fact that I was not physically present," Margiela explained in the film, "created a mystery that was more important than when I would have been there." In 2021, Margiela emerged again, this time as an artist. His first solo exhibition opened at Lafayette Anticipations in Paris, featuring sculptures, installations, and photographs developed over 2 years. The show continued themes from his fashion work: identity, anonymity, transformation, while exploring new artistic territory. One installation featured 5 head-like orbs arranged in a row, with silicone skin covered in natural hair, dyed in progressive tones, from childlike blonde to the gray of old age. a meditation on time and aging. Another work placed fake fur over an entire life-size bus stop, transforming a mundane public space into something surreal and tactile. The exhibition confirmed what many had long suspected, that Margiela had always been an artist using fashion as his medium. Now, freed from commercial constraints, he could explore his vision through new forms. Today, Martin Margiela remains one of fashion's most influential figures precisely because he refused to become a figure at all. His absence created a presence that continues to loom large over the industry. His radical ideas, deconstruction, recycling, anonymity, questioning the system itself, have become part of fashion's DNA. When asked about Margiela's influence, designer Marc Jacobs once said, "Anybody who's aware of what life is in a contemporary world is influenced by Margiela." Alexander McQueen and Nicolas Ghesquière both expressed their admiration for his creative genius. Perhaps most significantly, Margiela proved that fame isn't necessary for influence. In an age of influencers and endless self-promotion, his deliberate removal of the self from his work feels increasingly radical and refreshing. The man who disappeared from fashion didn't fake his death, but he did kill the idea that designers need to be celebrities. In doing so, he created something far more powerful than a personal brand. He created a legacy built on ideas rather than image, on revolution rather than recognition. As for Margiela himself, he's alive and well, continuing to create on his own terms, still refusing interviews and photo opportunities. For someone who never wanted the spotlight, his shadow stretches remarkably far. In a 2021 interview, one of the very few he's granted, Margiela reflected on his fashion career with characteristic understatement. "It took me 12 years to feel ready to introduce my work to an audience. That patience, that willingness to wait until the moment is right, to value substance over speed, that's the essence of Margiela's approach to creativity. It's why his work continues to resonate in a world of fast fashion and faster fame." Martin Margiela didn't fake his death. He simply chose to live and create on his own terms, perhaps the most radical fashion statement of all. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, he proved that sometimes the most powerful position is just outside the frame.